In this video, we're going to zoom out a little bit and have a look at global markets. We can see that Japan's been coming down, Taiwan's market has been coming down, China's market coming down, Australia has been doing reasonably well, Bitcoin has been bleeding, Germany's market, and if we look into the US markets, which are those green markets, they've been retracing. The markets absolutely love inflation. When inflation is going up, that's a really good thing, especially the forward inflation rates. To get inflation to come up, M1 money stock and M2 money stock must come up. When we zoom out a little, we can see the Bitcoin and the Nasdaq have come down slightly, but they're still in a roaring uptrend. In yesterday's video, I was talking about the potential for an uptick, especially inside the crypto market, and that's what we've seen. One thing to just pay attention to, the S&P 500 has been under a retracement for quite a few days now. The issue is around this 6350 is a very strong level of structural support. It hit there and bounced up. Looking deeper inside the markets, we can see the bond market is starting to calm down, which is a good thing. And also, Bitcoin could be potentially bottoming at this particular point. We can expect a lot of volatility as the Jackson Hole Symposium gets underway. And currently, there's an 81.9% probability, a little bit lower than yesterday, which was 86.6%. Of a rate cut in the next FOMC meeting. Getting swept up in media headlines, which are basically stories in order to sell readership. Sensationalism is the focus. Instead of doing that, inside our beloved global family, we focus on the facts. Not the emotions, just the facts. Stories can become easily distorted, and a distorted story can have you acting in ways against your own self-interest. That's why we always focus on price reality. The next time you hear a story, you better question it because that story may be not working in your direction. When seeking to understand risk-off or risk-on behavior, we tend to look at the futures because they give a very good indication, especially the US futures. We've seen the Nasdaq pulling down, the S&P 500 pulling down, the Dow has been remarkably strong, and the Russell has been pulling down as well. And you might notice this blue line behind here, this is Bitcoin. For example, some news sources, this is from the Wall Street Journal, they're saying there is CPI fueling reports of a rate cut, and other sources are saying no rate cut. This can get really confusing, and things in the financial markets can change very quickly as well. For example, the Fed minutes reveal broad support for holding rates steady last month, but the probabilities for the next FOMC meeting aren't holding rates steady. They're going to cut. You can listen to a story or you can watch the data. When we look at US liquidity, we're not seeing any upshoots in liquidity. Generally, we see an upshoot in liquidity to support financial markets, to stop them from coming down and reverse their course. We're so far not seeing this, which means that the markets are relatively healthy. In terms of the longs and the shorts on Bitcoin, what can we see here? The Bitcoin longs are getting very excited. They're definitely buying the dip, and well done because that was a very good time to do it. The shorts have been covering their positions. The shorts need to be a little bit careful because there's a lot of short interest in the market. When the shorts get liquidated, they have to buy, which forces the price up. And when the longs get liquidated, they are for sellers. They push the price down. In the past 24 hours, there's been $400 million worth of liquidation and around $215 of short liquidations. The highest liquidation value in a single position was on Bitcoin for $39 million. Ouch. What caused the shorts to get liquidated? There was a lot of underpinning structural support inside and across the entire crypto market. Around that 3.74 trillion, there was an absolute whack of it. So as price came down, it gradually found the buyers returning to the market And of course, we got that pling up, which cost someone $39 million. And it's very fair that people went short into the market because there's a lot of negative sentiment. There's also a lot of volatility around at the current time. But all we need to look at is structure. Structure will give you the truth, and you don't have to worry about stories. You can become independent. Independent thinking is a very important thing. A lot of people want to manipulate you into their way of thinking, and that is very dangerous, not only in life, but especially in financial markets. You just need to know where is the support, where is the resistance, and just focus on that. It's that simple. The CTKS method is all about you getting liberated from other people's stories. The stories of the market, the stories of whatever. To become your own institution of one. Now, to do that, you need specific tools. For example, the cheat sheet looks through 7 rows of data to help you to stack probabilities. We're going to do it really quickly. Row 1 and row 2 are all about risk on and risk off behavior. The major stock market, especially the US stock market, basically dictates where the global markets will go. And the canary inside the coal mine is definitely Bitcoin and the entirety of the crypto market. So what typically happens if risk off is coming into the market, Bitcoin will get hit first and throw a forward signal into the markets. But it also goes the other way. If Bitcoin is starting to recover, we would expect a bounce or a recovery inside the main markets, which will then lead itself into recovery of sub-names. In other words, the things that you typically trade or invest in. Bitcoin is an absolutely magnificent signal to keep your eyes on. Having a look at row 1, which is the VIX, the US dollar currency index, dollar yen, the 10-year, the 2-year, and oil, we can see that the VIX has been coming up recently. And I've just inverted Bitcoin just to help you to see that relationship. So when Bitcoin is coming down, and the inverted Bitcoin is therefore going up, we can see a reasonably good overlay on the VIX, at least from a directional stance. The VIX is a good one to drive risk on or risk off sentiment. And one thing that we can see in here, this is called an SC or Stanfield zone. SCs accumulate CTKS levels, and CTKS levels are drawn across all of price history. Recent indicative price levels for support and resistance are typically moving target lines. People will just keep on moving them around. That creates its own story. And it's best to keep away from stories, especially if you're putting money into something. So when we look at this, we saw that the VIX spiked up into overhead structural resistance just above this 1650, and it backed off. It is actually at structural support where it is currently. Now, what does this mean? It means that the VIX could bounce up, or it could go down. Now, if it goes down into this particular area, it will rally the markets, find support just when everybody's getting excited, and then start to bounce up. Now, what if it holds here and bounces up? Well, we have that 1650 resistance. You always have to look from a bullish case and a bearish case, also understanding intercorrelation and interconnection. A lot of people like to trade news. We don't trade news, we trade structure. So for example, I've just put Bitcoin as it's supposed to be. The little number on the bottom and the big number on the top means an uninverted scale. We can see Bitcoin has been coming down, and this is largely because the VIX has been coming up. Now, this is very constructive price action and telling us that there's the probability of the VIX actually going lower and Bitcoin coming up. If Bitcoin comes up, we would expect the main markets to bounce up as well. You want to get yourself away from stories. Stories are very, very dangerous. And a lot of people will actually spread false stories to get what they want at your expense. Stories are designed to just make you emotional. Emotion is generally the absolute driver of loss. So when we look at just getting rid of stories altogether and having independent thought, which is really important, we can see that inverted Bitcoin and the DXY are just tending to overlay the directional movements on each other. I'll just uninvert that so you can see what Bitcoin is actually doing. This is also suggesting at the current time, this area of overhead structural resistance could actually just see the US dollar currency index start to fall. If that is the case, we would expect Bitcoin and the markets to start to rise. Of course, if it flips the other way, we must be flexible enough to just move with the reality of the market. We have a little song on the CTKS playlist which is called Chicken Trader. Chicken Trader is just emotional story-based trading. In other words, what people normally do. If you've ever got into the situation, too scared to buy, too scared to hold, too scared to sell, you know what that song is all about. And don't worry, it's really important to be kind to yourself. We all start there. The major difference is when you understand financial markets are all about stories and you need to get independent from your stories and find the facts and the real drivers behind price moving. It's an absolute awakening. Well, what we can see here is Bitcoin is basing at the moment. There's the potential to come up. We can also see that the VIX may go through this negative CTKS gap back to all of this structural support. So we could see a retracement in Bitcoin, and then as the VIX comes into structure just in time for Jackson Hole, we could get a spike up. We'll need to keep our eye on the dollar DXY. If the DXY confirms a move down, that is likely to confirm a move down in the VIX. Also, if we get continuation on the yields to the downside, that is really good. When the yield spike, that's typically not such a good thing for Bitcoin because spiking yields tend to drive Bitcoin down. And when they drive Bitcoin down, they drive the markets down as well. Stacking probabilities is the absolute utter thing that you must do. Stacking probabilities will help you to get rid of stories. There's a lot of people who are going to give you their stories. The financial media is full of those people. They're not bad. They're just trying to sell newspapers and online information sources. It just makes a lot of sense. But what you need to do is to become independent of all of that. Inside row 2, we have junk bonds, the euro dollar, the Aussie dollar, gold, silver, and copper. We can see that Bitcoin has been coming down. Junk bonds has been coming down as well. But we're getting into structural support now. This is a really good thing. And you'll notice this negative CTKS gap was largely responsible for the big drop-off in junk bonds. And that, of course, is a very risk-off indicator, and it will flow through into the main markets, as well as crypto. When we look at gold, gold is starting to turn around. This is great stuff. When we look at the SC, around that 33.24 mark was some very good underpinning structural support. The structural resistance, the key level to keep your eye on is 33.70. So if we see the VIX start to pump down and also the DXY come down, gold come into this 33.70, Bitcoin start to come up as well. There is a wave-based function that is always playing out inside the markets. You just need to be aware of why it moves in a wave. It's because of the cheat sheet. Looking at Bitcoin structurally is really important because it gives you a really good idea. Remember when junk bonds had that negative CTKS gap and it fell rather dramatically? We had been talking about the 113,800 level. A couple of key structural levels to keep your eyes on. Structural support at 113,482 and 112,617. A lot of people have been saying, oh, if it gets below this level, it's all over. That's not actually the case. There's quite a lot of underpinning structural support below Bitcoin. A lot of people have been thrown out because of all of this volatility. But as we came into Jackson Hole, we anticipated this a week ago. We were prepared and not scared. Also, this CTKS structure up at 117,930 is a potential target. So just think in terms of levels. All professionals think in terms of levels. And if you've got enough of a gap between levels, you can actually make a fortune from that gap. If Bitcoin comes up to the 117,930, we would expect the DXY to be coming down, US 10, US 2 to be coming down, the Euro and the Aussie dollar to be going up, gold and silver to be coming up, and also copper to be coming up. In other words, we can stack probabilities. A lot of people think that Bitcoin just moves because of the SEC or crypto-related news. Of course, that does play into why Bitcoin moves as it does, but it's largely macro intercorrelation that moves Bitcoin. Looking at total Bitcoin spot ETF net inflow, we've seen 3 days of outflows or net outflows at the current time. Looking at total crypto market cap, we can see that we've got much more underpinning structural support inside total crypto market cap structure. The level to watch from the upside is around that 3.88 trillion. And we do have increasing support underneath, which is kind of neat. Looking into row 6, which is Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Binance Coin, and Ethereum Classic, we've seen just recently that Litecoin has done particularly well. It's moving in a wave between structural support and structural resistance. If it gets above, it's going to the next one above. If it can't get above, it's going to the one below. Price is always moving in this wave-based function, up and down, up and down. It's not only up, it's not only down. It's just structure. And that is as simple as it gets. With Binance Coin, there's a tremendous amount of overhead structural resistance around that 880 mark. Just something to bear in mind. But BNB has been doing really well. Looking into row 7, which is ADA, Solana, XRP, and Dogecoin. ADA has been doing really well. Getting across this level of structural overhead resistance took a little while, but it's starting to convert it into structural support. To know which way ADA is going, you need to know which way Bitcoin is going. To know which way Bitcoin is going, you need to know the structure on total and the intercorrelation and interconnection, especially with row 1 and row 2. If you thought trading and investing in ADA was as simple as just putting money into ADA, that's not the institution of one lens that we look at the markets through. When looking at Solana, you can see Solana has been grinding up through all of this overhead structure and seeking to convert it into structural support. Doge has also done well in the past 24 hours. We anticipated this leg up, and that's exactly what we got. Keeping your mind positive is very important. This world is kind of nuts. Therefore, we need a bit of a guide to help us do daily positive affirmations for abundance, financial success, and happiness. Happiness is a pretty key thing. You can be angry or grateful. If you're grateful, you'll be happy. Knowing that the universe wants us to succeed is very important. Every day we can show kindness, integrity, and gratitude. And always remember, delays are not denials. In the delay, your character shines through. I know opportunities in life reset daily. This is a really good positive affirmation because it's true. Opportunities in life do reset daily. Knowing you are worthy, go slow to go fast. Sometimes life tests us. It sees that if we really want something, or if it's not that important. Going slow will show you if something's important or not, and it will also show other people. Always remember that life pullbacks will give you the strength for the next life rally. Staying dedicated and committed, either focusing on winning or learning and never blaming. Blame is just an absolute disempowering thing. It is the engine behind negative excellence and all the woes of this world. That's why we say we never let a problem beat us, we solve it with positive excellence. For example, if there's some misunderstanding, the best thing that you can do is to have the strength to directly talk to that person. Doing so with kindness is very important. Misunderstandings are common, it's part of the human condition. Right across the world, we all speak different languages, so therefore learning other people's culture and respecting that is also really important. Positive excellence is much more than just how you can trade and invest more effectively. It's a beautiful way to live a very meaningful life. Conflict is just a natural part of the human condition. I was thinking it might be kind of nice to talk to the concept of how you deal with conflict. What is the best way to be heard? And always remember, when it comes to things like conflict just shows that a relationship is actually important. A lot of people will think conflict shows that the relationship is not important. It's the other way around. And if you're going through a light pullback at the current time, please know that the sun will come out again. Things will get better. You're just growing in terms of strength and in terms of wisdom. Have a great day or night ahead, my friends, and Kate and I look forward to catching up with you again in the next video. Bye for now.